Hello, guys. Welcome to the Right Balance Show. Today, we have with us Jenn Knight. She's the co-founder and CTO of AgentSync. We are super excited for this combo. Welcome, Jenn, again, and Alex, whenever you're ready.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ruben. Jen, welcome. So excited to have you on the show and excited to talk about your journey as a technology leader. I guess the first thing to start is what brought you to technology?
That's a great question, and thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here. I came to technology in a slightly unconventional way. I think that's true for actually a lot of people. There's the path that people expect, CS degree, loved computers your whole life, and suddenly you work at a tech company. Mine was a little different. I was a international relations major in college. I always loved computers and technology, loved math and logic as a kid growing up, but really wanted to study something that was more about human interaction and some of the bigger challenges in our world. So did that in college, and then had the opportunity coming out of college to work for a company that put me in a position where I got experience with Salesforce. So that started my journey into tech, but kind of came in through, I'd say, a bit of a non-standard path along the way.
Interesting. Okay, Salesforce. I've heard that Apex is similar to Java, but not really Java. How is that different?
How does that work? Yeah, so I actually started my Salesforce journey. I was a office manager at a solar company, and someone said, "You look bored. Do you want to become a Salesforce admin?" It was in the very early days of Salesforce when they came out with Apex. I didn't know that Apex was like Java because I didn't know that Java existed. But I did learn after the fact on a lot of my studies and time after that I would call Apex a variation of Java that in its early phases was much more limited in what it could do. Now it's much more robust. So if you write in Java, you can understand and read Apex and write in Apex, but of course it's its own language, so it has its natural little quirks about the Salesforce platform. And in some cases, in the early days, it was really frustrating for folks who came in from Java there. They had libraries and all these other resources they could use and maybe a more traditional full stack engineering process. Being in the cloud, being on the Salesforce ecosystem was a little different. But for me, it was a great opportunity to think about what does it look like to build technology for a business user, and what does it look like to do it in the constraints of a platform where you're working on that third party. So from a design perspective and creativity perspective, it actually created some really interesting constraints that were different. Salesforce platform has evolved a ton since then, and so my experience in 2008 and the experience someone has developing in that today are pretty different. But yeah, if you're a Java engineer and you want to go take a look at it, it's going to look really familiar to you.
Yeah, and another thing is also Salesforce itself offers a lot of pre-made stuff that you can just use. So not a lot of handwriting. Okay, cool. So that all started there, and I guess that's where you started with Apex, more of a hands-on coding, and that's what you got into it. Like I said, it's not um, a very common path with the education side of things, but opportunity was there and you took it. So that led to evolution of your career into the technological leadership, which I'm starting to see some of the leadership started happening at LinkedIn. So, would you mind telling us a little bit more about how you evolved from individual contributor into leadership at your LinkedIn position?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll first say how I went from an office manager to a Salesforce engineer was actually a lot of, and I'm very thankful for early in my career, a lot of mentorship from folks who knew what they were doing. We had an amazing IT leader at my company who offered me the opportunity to learn to code. He said, this looks like something you might want to do when the Apex language came out. So I always like to think about that of, there's anybody for coming in a non-traditional way and someone raises their hand and says, I want to teach you this and you're interested in learning. There's a lot of great people out there. John was a leader that was for me at that solar company. From there, I went to Blue Wolf, and they are a partner in the SI system integrator ecosystem for Salesforce. And there's a whole crew of engineers there who helped me get excellent at what I did, and were really thoughtful with their feedback and helping me grow. So I spent a stint at Blue Wolf with that group, and I still have really fond memories of that. And then from there, I got asked to join LinkedIn or to be their first Salesforce engineer. And that came in at a time where they were translating some of the things they'd built with no code, low code into more sophisticated solutions. I got to do that with a great team who had awesome business context to start. Their sales systems team there, they were one of the first companies to invest in an in-house Salesforce team early on. So I got to do that. And then from that, as we started to scale up, they gave me the opportunity to bring in additional engineers because I had so much context on the business and what I'd built, and we knew we needed to build more things. I got the opportunity to go into a leadership role.
So interesting how you mentioned that your leader in very early on saw an opportunity for you to get into coding from a non-coding background. Have you enabled that opportunity for other people who haven't been coders before in your later jobs?
I had the opportunity. It was really exciting at LinkedIn. We had an opportunity when we got our team to a certain size to allow individuals to do rotations through the different roles that are required on a business application team. So I ran technical architecture and engineering. We had a team of administrators as well as a team of technical program managers, and then a data team. And people who came into the data team, which was an entry-level position in LinkedIn, after a certain point in time, they had an opportunity to do rotations through those teams. So I did have an opportunity while at LinkedIn to expose people to what it would look like to become a Salesforce engineer, to come out of a non-technical role and do that job. And there were a couple of folks who ultimately did it, which was really, really exciting. Here, we have had the opportunity to take folks out of the business and bring them into the R&D function at AgentSync, which has been also really fun when we've had that opportunity. So I think it is not always the most traditional path. It can be a little bit harder, and depends on the company and whether or not at that moment in time they have the capacity to be able to train someone or a role where that's a good fit. And I was really, really lucky to get to see that at LinkedIn, and I loved it as a leader. Some people did not want to do it, right? You do 6 months stint as an Apex engineer and you realize that is not what gets you up in the morning, and that's totally fine. And some people actually got really surprised that it was something that they really loved. So it takes all kinds.
So it's clear what the benefits are to the employee to go try out different areas to see if they like it. What is the benefit for the company to do that type of transition?
Yeah, that you actually just hit the nail on the head. The biggest benefit that I've seen in that is you have someone who has context and appreciation of what's happening in the company, potentially from a different role, so they can move into a role. When I think about systems teams in particular, you're serving a peer at your company, right? You're building a system that's going to make their job and their day in life and that job more effective. If you've done that job, you're going to be really great at designing systems to make it better because you remember what you didn't like, you know exactly what was hard about it, and how to make that better. We have an individual here who moved from a sales role into product as an early product person, and she was selling the product. She was talking to the customers. She knew all the edges, and she could bring that context into helping the product team, amplify our feature set. So I think about it that way, right? It's knowledge, it's context, it's knowing who you're serving, and it can be really, really valuable for the business.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's a known person, so it's not that you've hired somebody new, they were awesome at the interview, but they didn't show up for work, and this is more of a somebody you worked with before. I guess there's a other side of it, like you said, somebody can go into trying to be a Salesforce engineer and decide that it's not their thing, or decide that it's their thing, but then keep on pushing and not being honest with themselves, and then failing on performance, and then going back into what they were used to do. So there's the other side of that equation coin, I would say too. But the benefits, like you said, are pretty good, especially in a large organization where ramp up time is longer period.
Yeah, both Dropbox and LinkedIn had rotation programs at the time I was there. And to your point, it was great for the company. It was also great for the individual because you weren't locked in. If it didn't work, it didn't make sense. I think about that a lot. I think sometimes culturally we talk about technical roles as everyone should want to do them and everyone should want to pursue them, and they might, they're the best day ever, and it's not for everyone, and that's okay. That's not a judgment. That's what you like to do and what gets you up every day and what gets you excited. For some people, that's talking to customers, that's being out on the floor doing different things. For other people, it's solving a problem and shipping a piece of code to solve the problem. And we're all in it together. So it was a really nice way for folks to test that out and then say, yes, I want to pursue this, or actually, I just learned something about what my peer does. I'm going to go back to this other role. I'm going to have appreciation for what they do. And I'm going to realize that that is not what I would want to do with my career.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's definitely good, good learning, and also a good technique for other technology leaders to use in their jobs. Okay, so also you've done a lot of interesting things on the compliance and process automation. So I guess, would you mind speaking a little bit more about this particular area? So compliance, process automation. What's different about it? What's challenging? What are the challenges in that area?
Yeah. So I got the first part of my career before AgentSync was really all around business technology and the business applications that power a business at scale, as the product is out in the market, right? So there's product engineering organizations, and then all businesses use technology to run their business. And at different stages, they require different complexity in that technology stack, and at different stages in a company's life cycle, they require different amounts of oversight and governance on those different parts of the stack. So my job ultimately was to match the technology in the back office with the needs of the business to help the business move forward. And in some cases, when you're supporting a finance team, right, you have external auditors. As you know, I was at companies that were getting ready to go public or had just gone public. And when you're a public company, like I was at LinkedIn, you have obligations around that and how your technology works. So from a compliance perspective, in my past life, it was really around that. Is how do we make sure that we're serving the needs of the business, and if there are external demands around how this data is going to be assessed, we're complying with those, and we're operating in a way that protects the business. So that was the kind of first piece on compliance for me. On the automation side, it was some of it was automation, a lot of it was more like streamlining internal processes. How do we think about designing a system that's going to allow a salesperson to spend their time selling, captures the data we need to make smart business decisions, but we're out of their way as much as possible, right? How do we think about a system that's designed to support someone in finance, running the calculations they need in an automated way to get to the analysis that they're ultimately going to conduct, that's going to go into some type of financial reporting? And so that was where I spent my time, was thinking about how do you design data and systems and processes to streamline internal operations, and then the compliance layers, how are those operations observable and in some cases protected so that you can meet your obligations to an auditor.
So designing data and designing systems is very close to what people come from software engineer background doing, but then design processes is a little bit of a different beast. Would you mind speaking about how you design processes, integrate them, and ensure that they stay consistent?
So our job, and it is great differentiation. When you think about maybe more traditional software engineering for a product, right? There's more of an opportunity, I think, to say, this is how, from a product perspective and a product company perspective, we're going to go to market and say, this is how this should be done. When you're working in-house in a technology stack, the processes of designing that technology, the software development life cycle, and all those obligations are the same, but how you're getting the work and who you're working with is different. And so we were working with internal customers who have a set of obligations to perform for the company. And so the process work was in partnership with them. They'd say, hey, this is a process we need. And then our job was to look at that and say, well, here's what the technology can do, and here's how we can help you with that. Here's where we can automate steps of it. Here's where we can improve that. Or here's where we collectively say, oh, we need to put a control framework in, or whatever that looks like, right? So we have a customer who, once upon a time, a long, long time ago, sat down the hall from you. And they were coming with that business need and saying, this is how I imagine my workflow going. And we got the chance to say, okay, now we have a technology stack that can really improve that, or can do it in a different way, or can really automate that for you. So it's the same engineering building mindset with a different set of constraints and a kind of different set of consumers in terms of how work comes in.
Yeah, and also your customers are within your own company, so this is makes a lot of things easier. All right, cool. So now I wanted to also talk about your current role. Would you mind speaking a little bit more how you transition from working a job to go and start a company?
Yeah. So My co-founder is also my husband. We met when we worked together at LinkedIn. I worked in sales systems and he worked in sales operations. So as we just discussed, he was my customer. And he would come and say, these are the things I want to build for my team. And we got the opportunity between 2011 and 2014 to build some really exciting things at LinkedIn. And when we left and we were really like designing things together and building things together. We didn't have a good idea coming out of LinkedIn. So I went off to Dropbox, he went off to Zenefits. And at Zenefits, he saw the problem and challenge that we ultimately are solving at AgentSync. I was happy at Dropbox. Then I decided to go to Stripe. And he was like, I think I want to go do this thing. And I had a moment, I think, for any founder where I said, well, if not now, when? Loved my job, loved my team. But I knew what my career would look like in effect, staying in the systems space, which I love. It's people always say that's your true passion. And so I got to go build a company that's in the systems space. So I guess I get to live my true passion a slightly different way. But in tech, and it is hard, but I think it's a really wonderful thing that people do not judge you for going out and trying to start a company. So we had a moment where I said, this isn't going to happen again, probably for us. Are we ready to take the leap? And we took the leap.
At that point in time, were you in San Francisco?
We were in San Francisco at the time that we decided to do this. I always say we were no babies, no mortgage. We are on the older side of first-time founders, but we were able to look at this and say, hey, this is kind of a great moment for us to try it out. And we were really, honest with each other of what we were leaving behind, the probability that it could fail, what it could look like in terms of growth. We thought that this company would be much, much smaller. So we kind of just said, sense check for us. Let's go try it. And if we're 2 years in and it doesn't make sense, or we want to go back, or it didn't work at all, if we can make it to 2 years, that'd be amazing. If we figure out really quickly that this was not a good idea, we were lucky enough to be experienced enough in our careers. We were like, we can always go find a job again. And he loved being in sales operations, and I loved being in systems. And so I was like, it's an experiment. And if it doesn't work, we as a team can manage that. And we can manage kind of reintegrating back into our prior career tracks.
Would you start a new company now?
Actually, was talking about this. I think maybe the great irony of being a founder. I've learned a lot, and not my intention next time. But I also think you never know. We now have a baby and a mortgage, and a lot of different circumstances at play. And so, I don't see it for me next, but maybe you never know.
I see. Because you mentioned it was the right time before the kids in the mortgage, and now you do have kids in the mortgage. I was wondering if that would be different now. So
I think everyone has to balance it, and that's just to say, it's founding for anyone who's done it is very hard. And there's really great moments, and there's really low moments, and there's a lot of moments of uncertainty. And just at any point in, I think, any of our lives, right, there's easier moments to do that and harder moments to do that. That doesn't mean that it's ever off the table. And I also like to think about it. We talk about founders in the tech world. There are family-run businesses all over this country. Most, there's all these SMBs. Maybe where you got your sandwich today, maybe where you're going to go buy a card, for a friend this afternoon. People are founding companies all the time in all different contexts to solve all different needs. So I just always look at it as like, it's a big leap. And if you're ready to make the leap and you have the support to make the leap, make the leap. It's tons of fun. It's also insane.
Yeah, it is insane. You need to be a little bit crazy to go and actually start a company, whatever that company is. I also have another friend who is also diving into that endeavor, and I told them, look, there's only so many times in your life you can actually do this. So do it. If that thing will crash and burn, don't regret it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just try it out, and it will be that experience that you will never regret. Also, lots of learning. So there's so much stuff you learn from actually running the company as opposed to reading a book about running the company. It's very different.
Yep, it's very different.
Cool. So let's then wrap it up with the learning. So I guess it's been an amazing journey all the way in the beginning till where you're at now. I mean, I'm also excited to see what the journey will bring continuously from today. But what type of learnings helped you excel in your career, and what can you share with other technology leaders to do the same?
Yeah. When I think about in my career up to this point, and I think it holds true as a founder, is if someone offers you help, take the help. If someone pushes you away when you ask for help or makes you feel bad about asking for help, that's about that person, not about you. Curiosity, wanting to learn, asking the dumb question so you can learn more, asking the dumb question so someone on your team gets an opportunity to tell you what they know and to think with you as a partner. That's a great skill. And I learned in my career that people want to share, people want to educate you. I didn't know a lot going into a lot of my roles. I took on a finance systems team, and the first thing I did was went and took a class on accounting because I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I learned I do not want to be an accountant. I have a ton of respect for accountants, and it helped me better serve them so that I could ask smarter questions. But they were so giving to me. I've had so many people give things to me in terms of knowledge. So I think especially in a world where technology is changing a lot and there's a lot of uncertainty, for me in my career, finding people who wanted to teach me, staying away from people who didn't want to teach me, not getting down on myself about that, and that was always continuous learning. That translated into founding, because if you're going to found a company, you're going to learn 100 things every week. A lot of them you didn't want to learn. And so, that I always think a lot about is, my dad would call it putting tools in the toolkit. Find people who will help you put tools in the toolkit. You'll figure out how to use them later. But that is the biggest thing, of just continuous learning. And then I think here I always think about it as, it starts with technology, but it's really about people. So if you're going to found, think about the people journey. And it's going to evolve a lot depending on the size of your company. A company of 3 people looks really different than a company of 20, then 50, then 100. So it's fun as a technologist. I was like, I want to go tinker on the code, but actually it's tinkering on the team. And really thinking about that when you start is a good way to think about how you want to evolve it.
Yeah, awesome. No, this is definitely lots of good learnings, and it described in a very concise way. So thank you for sharing that. All right, awesome. So Jenn, it has been a pleasure of having you, and thank you for sharing your wonderful journey, wonderful story. So we're all excited for you that you are now in your position. It's super cool that you found the company with your husband and it all worked out. So that seems like lots of things that are with a positive outcome happen all at the same time. So excited for you. Thanks for joining the show and sharing a lot of the excitement and positive emotions that are associated with your journey. So Ruben, I'll then pass it over to you to wrap this thing up, and let's do it.
All right. So, Jenn, again, thank you very much. Definitely, we enjoyed this conversation. And for everybody who's watching, please remember to like and follow. We are going to have more special guests in the show. And also remember to follow the channels of Jenn. And looking forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. Bye.
Thank you both.
Bye.
Did you enjoy this video? Then hit the like button and share it with your network. Also be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.